Okay, this is a tutorial that is going to show you how to create a dispersion graph to help present your data. And the first thing we need to look at is what data are we presenting. So we are presenting the organic content taken from 20 fields, and we can see those 20 fields listed there in row 1. 20 fields that were wheat and 20 fields that were dairy fields. So had grass growing in them. And this number here represents the percentage of the soil that was made up of organic matter. Okay, so here we can see a wheat field where 27% of the soil was made up of organic matter, and here we can see a field where 8.9% of the soil was made up of organic matter. We've also included the median. The median is used in interquartile ranges and in box whisker graphs because it allows you to see the spread of data around the central value or the middle value, which is what the median is. So we're going to include that in our data because when we do our dispersion graph, you'll see how we can use that. Okay. Now, one final thing before we look at how to create the dispersion graph using the chart editor. There are two ways you can set up data. So I've set up my two main categories, my wheat data and my dairy data, in rows 2 and rows 3. And each of my fields, I've used my columns from B through to U. So the alternative way to do this would be where column B was wheat and column C was dairy, and my number of fields, that would be down in the rows. So I'd have number 1 here, number 2, number 3, number 4, and so on. So there are two ways you can actually organize your data, and the way the graphs are then created depends on the way you set up your data in the first place. So as you'll see in a second, there's one small tweak I need to do because I've formatted my data this way, or set it up in a table this way, that will allow me to create a dispersion graph. Okay, so we're going to go through a series of steps to create our dispersion graph using the chart editor. And the first thing is we need to highlight the data we want to present. So we want to present our wheat and our dairy data and our 20 fields. We want them all to appear in a graph because we're going to do a dispersion graph. And we're going to include the median in there because I want to show that at the end in my data presentation. So the next thing is we go via the chart editor. So there's two ways we can go. We can go for insert, and this is the longer way chart, or we can just use the shortcut button up here, which is insert the chart. Okay. What that automatically does is it creates a graph and it brings up the chart editor. And you'll see over here we've got a line graph, which is not what we're wanting. And as a matter of fact, dispersion graphs are not one of the options on the chart type. So if I go to the setup menu, which is highlighted, and go down to chart type, I don't want a line graph because a line graph would be used if I was trying to show change. And there is no dispersion option, but I can turn a scatter graph into a dispersion graph. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do. So I've opted for scatter. Now the first thing that happens when I look at my data is it still looks like a kind of like a line graph come scatter graph. It's not a dispersion graph as we know it. So that's because of the way I set up my data here. So I'm just going to make a change down at the bottom of this menu option. So I'm in my setup, I'm going to scroll down and I want to turn off this. Okay. And what that's done is it's turned each of the series, each of these little rows has been turned into its own color. So number 1, field number 1 is blue, and that's the wheat. That's this one here, and it's also the dairy. Now, this is a different field, and therefore I don't really need colors like we're showing. So I'm going to show you how to remove those colors. It's not as simple as you think, unfortunately. And actually, the color is irrelevant in my piece of data presentation. What is relevant is when I print this off, I need to be able to see all of my data fields. Now I'm just going to move my legend from the right to somewhere else because you'll notice it only shows you 14. So I'm going to just go to the customize option now. And I'm going to go down to the legend and just turn the arrow down so I can see the legend. And You can see some information about the position of the legend. It's auto, so I can bring it up at the bottom, for example. And now I can see all 20, including the median. Okay. A few other little things I want to change is I don't have any label here on my y-axis. So let me just turn that arrow back. And I want to go to my chart axis. Now, my vertical axis is going to need a title. So this is the percentage organic content. That's incredibly important. Otherwise, you don't know what those numbers mean on a graph. So there we go. It's come up there. My title is also not telling me what my graph is showing. So I'm going to go up here, change it to chart title. Now I can type in my chart title, which is comparing the organic content for wheat and dairy fields. Okay. So now there's my title changed. A few other little things which you want to do just to allow better analysis of your data is how is my data spread around my median value? So if I want to show my median value, at the moment I can't see my median value being any different from all of the other dots. So what I want to do is I want to go to my series, and I'm going to go, first of all, down to this format a data point. And I'm going to select, if I go all the way down to the bottom, my median wheat fields. I'm going to hit OK. I'm now going to go for a black, and I'm going to, you'll see median wheat fields has now appeared as black. And I'm going to maybe increase the size a little bit. You can see it's much bigger than the rest. And I can even change the shape so it stands out from the rest. Okay, so that's my median value for my wheat fields. I now want to do my median value for my dairy fields. Okay, and you'll notice I can change it there. And I can furthermore change the shape if I wish. That just will allow you to highlight your median value in your data set. Now, if we want to do a further little bit of data editing, we have to look at each of our data points, because you'll notice some of them are very light in color. And whilst that's easy for me to spot when I'm digitally, if I'm printing these out, I might not be able to see that. So let me show you how to change the colors. Okay, so in order to change some of these colors, so the lighter colors are going to appear, what you need to do is, using your series button, you're going to want to go in and select the things you want to change. So in this case, I want to change my median values to be a bit different from the others, so they jump out. So I might choose a color that stands out from the other colors. But more importantly, because this might be printed off in black and white, you might want to change the size. You might actually want to make it a little bit bigger than all your other data values, so you can see the spread of values around that. And once again, you can also change the shape, so it looks different. Okay. I would ignore this formatting the data point because it appears that this same thing can be done via the menu tool I'm just showing you. Okay. Right, let's go back up to this. Now, we've identified number 20 is a really light circle. So if we go down and select number 20, we can change this color to a much darker color that's going to print off like that. Okay, and you'll notice there it is, it's come out much darker. And if you work your way back through certainly the lighter colors and just select black continually, then you're going to see that change. One of the problems here is that a lot of these little circles will end up kind of merging really close together, especially for the dairy fields. So it might be that for all of your data series, let's on that again. You actually want to change the shape. Okay, so we might go for our little star. Okay, you notice it's changed all of them. There's my median value there. I'd have to go back in and change my median value to a different shape because it's defaulted them all back to being stars. So I might go for a triangle here. Okay. And I would once again, because I've applied this format data point, I'm going to have to change that manually. We're going for a triangle. There we go. Right. So what I would do is, I'm not going to do them all now. There's quite a light color. I'm going to want to change that to black. And gradually each of these little X's will start to appear. Okay. And you can, the darker ones like these ones would print off quite fine. But the lighter colors that you can barely see on the graph, you're going to want to certainly go with it doesn't have to be black. It's just to ensure it stands out. Right. That is you almost complete. You can keep your legend in if you want. It's actually irrelevant. You can delete it out if you wish to do so, but you can keep it there. We're almost complete. Let's just talk a little bit about analysis of a dispersion graph. So why do a dispersion graph? Well, there's two reasons. The first of all is it shows you the range between the highest and the lowest value. So here I can see my wheat field's got the highest of the values compared to both data sets. So it's got the soil that had the most organic content, more so than in the dairy fields. However, it's also got the lowest. And it's got the biggest range between the highest and the lowest. So it's the most spread. There's quite a big range of organic content in wheat fields. Whereas we can see in dairy fields, the range between the highest and lowest is much more clustered. So that's the first thing dispersion graphs allow you to see. That would then start asking the question, why is the organic content in wheat fields so much more spread than it is in dairy fields, which is why we are presenting the data in the first place. Because we've got our median highlighted here, we can see that the median value of wheat fields is much lower than the median value of dairy fields. We can actually give those two numbers in our data analysis if we wanted to do so. If we were to add a box and whisker, the box, remember, of the box and whisker represents the clustering of the middle 50%. So we'd have to do an interquartile range to find out which of these values is the lower quartile and which of these is the upper quartile. We would then draw a box around that, and that would show you the spread of the data around the middle 50%. Now, if you remember, the reason for doing that is it allows you to ignore extreme values like high and low values and just see, is your data very clustered around the median value? That's this one here. Or is it very spread? Okay, so that's just a little bit of kind of why we do dispersion graphs. This doesn't have to be wheat and dairy. These could be two things. As a matter of fact, if we had 5 different types of fields, we could and soils from them, we could have them all along the x-axis. And it doesn't even need to be soil. It could be whatever variable you're measuring, as long as it's got quantifiable data up the y-axis. In this case, it's percentages, but this could be the number of people. These, instead of wheat fields, this could be Perth, this could be Sterling. It's really up to you what your data is. But if you bear in mind the basic premise, dispersion graphs are there to present data and allow you to compare the spread of a data set and also to detect whether it's spread or clustered.